Hi, it's Toby Hazelwood here. What I'm going to be talking with you today about is a subject which I was recently prompted to think about, which I wrote a blog post on, inspired by the Japanese proverb, fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And my interpretation of this proverb and how I apply it in my life and how I'd like to encourage you to think about applying it in your life is all about the power of making ourselves try. And that's about making ourselves or picking ourselves up to recover from something or to get on and try something new if it's a new venture or something, a new challenge that we're embarking upon. It's really about just inspiring us to take action rather than being overly concerned with procrastination, being paralysed by fear, or alternatively kidding ourselves that we're waiting until conditions are perfect. And the idea is that obviously everyone has this kind of notion of what they kind of see in their mind's eye when they're contemplating something new. Now that's the same if you're looking to overcome some phase or some period of difficulty or some challenging episode in your life. That's if you're going through a divorce in your relationship or a relationship breakup, or if you're struggling to communicate with one of your relatives or a close friend. And the same applies when you're trying to kind of get yourself fired up and motivated about trying and taking on a new challenge. So maybe you're trying to kind of embark upon a new process of health and fitness, or you're trying to build a new business venture, or you're trying to do something to bring about positive change in our lives. And I guess what tends to happen, and what I see happening in both my own life and in those of people around me, is that everyone's so caught up in thinking ahead to what the results are going to look like, and they're kind of worried that they're either not going to get the results that they want, or they're going to struggle to achieve what they want to achieve, or struggle to get through the difficulty or the challenge, that they see the potential for results as being as kind of limited and kind of negative and off-putting for them. Similarly, they may be so put off by the idea of the successes that could come about that equally those kinds of notional successes that they're dreaming about can also be a barrier towards them getting going and just taking some action to start making it happen. It's this idea of being sort of paralysed by procrastination, so constantly wondering what's going to happen or thinking about what could happen, and then kind of shaping your actions in the here and now by kind of dreams, if you like, of the future, and not really knowing what's going to happen. But actually just kind of dreaming about it and thinking about it is enough to kind of put you off, whether it's because you're thinking things are going to be such a great success, or alternatively that they're going to be such a great failure. Now this is where the kind of power of trying comes in, and when I think of trying, I don't think of kind of half-assed effort where you're kind of going into something thinking, well, this might work, or actually it's probably more likely to be a failure, but it could be a massive success. You know, we're not talking about dabbling, we're not talking about just kind of giving it a little bit of our effort and giving it a little bit of commitment, but not really throwing ourselves into it. When I think of trying, I think of actually just getting up and giving it a go. Now, for the Star Wars fans amongst you, I'm not going to try and give it a proper impersonation, but there's a quote from Yoda that's quite well known, which is, "Do or do not, there is no try." And I kind of get what the little green Jedi was coming at when he made that suggestion to Luke Skywalker. And it's not just about, giving something a bit of a half-assed go, as I say, but actually about giving something a go with all your commitment. So when he said not trying, I think what he actually meant was you've got to go for it, you've got to do, but you've got to try with all of your might and all of your conviction and all of your courage to actually give something your all in order to make a success of it. Now, there's quite a well-known, or a number of probably well-known models in the field of personal development, which are all about our kind of potential for taking action. And I think whenever any of us embarks upon something, as I say, whether we take the 2 examples that I always use of going through a divorce where you're kind of dealing with an adversity in your life, or alternatively where you're trying to make a success of something, build a new business or undertake a new project, we always have a potential in our minds before we actually start doing anything. So, in a divorce situation, you may be thinking, well, my potential for improvement of my life is unlimited. I've got a real excitement about this. Obviously, it's going to be a hard and challenging period of life, but you can feel very excited, and hence your potential can be enormous when you're going into a divorce situation, because whilst things have failed, you see it as an opportunity to start afresh. And similarly, with a new business venture, you may be feeling like potential is, again, unlimited. You may be excited. You've got an idea for an exciting product or service and an idea as to how you're going to bring it to the people that need it, and therefore the potential's high. But conversely, potential in both situations can be low as well. You may be doubting of your ability to get through divorce, or you may be going into a new business wondering whether or not this is going to be a failure on the basis of other things that you've done that have failed. And in either case, the potential then shapes the amount of effort that you're going to apply to that situation. So the potential that if your potential's high and you feel like this is going to be a good thing, then chances are you're going to put a lot of effort into it. You're going to take a lot of action. You're going to really try your hardest. And what spookily enough tends to happen when we're trying our hardest and when we're giving something all of our actions and all of our efforts to make a success of it is we actually get successful. We get success as a result. We get good results. We get benefits. We feel the benefit. We feel the effects of our actions taking effect in our lives. And what this then tends to do is, because we're seeing good results, we then believe, our perception about it is actually this is going to work out for me. This is going to be a success. And so we go back to the start of the cycle where our potential again is lifted, it's higher, and therefore we're able to apply ourselves with all the more vigour and all the more diligence to actually make a success of it. But the same also holds true if our potential was low, if we felt negatively about what was likely to happen. Chances are we're going to kind of dabble with it. We're going to act with very little conviction. We're going to act with very little commitment to it. And as a result, the results we're likely to achieve are going to be lower. And that's going to then reinforce our belief that this is going to be hard. This was going to be a challenge. It is going to be difficult to get through this divorce or build this product or, to get back to a state where we're happy and stable. So therefore, our potential is lowered again, and so it continues. So in either case, if you think it's going to be hard or you think it's going to be easy, chances are, by virtue of the actions you'll take as a result, you're going to be right. So maybe sometimes there is a case for if you're in any way unsure about something, maybe you don't have a choice. If you're going through a divorce, you probably don't necessarily have a choice about the matter, whether you instigated it or whether it was foisted upon you. In either case, that's likely to be your future. So you do have to get on and try. You do have to give it your all. But sometimes, it is a matter of choice, and we always have the choice as to how much effort we put into something and how much kind of vigour we put into it and how much conviction we act with and how much courage we act with, because it's in our control. So what I'm really here to advocate is the actual necessity to try and to give things our absolute best, even if we're not sure what's going to happen. So one of my favourite authors is Seth Godin, who you may have encountered. He writes mainly non-fiction books on the topic of marketing and how we go about creating art and shipping it to the world. And what he often talks about is the idea that in order to free yourself from the doubts about whether something's going to work or something's going to meet the audience that you want it to, or whether it's going to flop, is that before you can kind of get on with creating anything, you have to embrace the notion that this might work or it might not work. And the idea is that, of course, with everything that we put out into the world, we may have an idea about something. We may have an idea about anything that we're going through that we believe we know how it's going to pan out. But the fact is we simply don't know. We don't know what's around the corner. We don't know what the future holds. And it is very much a case of accepting the idea that this might work, it might not work. And anyone who's created anything, whether that's, creating a painting or recording music or writing something or recording a video and putting it on YouTube, the idea is that you just don't know what's going to happen with it. And the same goes for any kind of process of human relationships. If you're working through a breakup of a relationship, you've no idea what's going to happen. You may find that you manage to find a means of patching up the relationship. You may find that actually when you get through it, it's far worse than you imagined, but you still find a way of dealing with life. And similarly, you may find actually you go through the process of parting, you may be reluctant about it to begin with, but by the time you get to the other side, you realise you've got a whole new beginning to your life. So, the truth is we just don't know what's going to happen in life until we get on and try. So I'd like to talk about 5 positives that I see as a result of trying, and 5 positive reasons why I think you should give things a try. And again, I want to re-emphasise, I'm not talking about dabbling with them. I'm not talking about giving them a half-assed attempt. I'm talking about going ahead and acting and taking the decision you're going to do something, rather than just worrying about whether the results you're going to get are going to be what you imagined and what you wanted. So the first thing is that trying really does give you an opportunity from the outset to test something and to test an idea and to test a hypothesis to see if you were right about it. We may spend ages and ages thinking about something that we're about to do, or contemplating a course of action and worrying about whether we're going to get the results we expected, or wondering what's going to happen, or how will it feel when I'm living as a single person again when I was used to being in a relationship, or how will I feel once I move out, or how will I feel once I create this new business and ship this product to the world. The fact is no one really knows. You may have an idea about it, but you don't know until you do it. So the act of trying and getting on and getting started really does allow you to start to give that idea a test and to really see if what you thought was in there is actually in there. So idea number 2 is that, results both good and bad can take time to emerge. And for as long as you're contemplating and procrastinating over an idea, you're not even potentially giving the results that you're likely to achieve the chance of accruing. When we launch a new product to the market, it can take months, if not years, before you start to see sales from it. You might write a new book and it takes, a good period of time before the market tends to become aware of it. Similarly, to build a new life after a breakup of a relationship or a divorce takes time. You're not going to immediately feel brilliant about it, no matter how enthusiastic you were about the parting. But, until you're established in a new life of living as a single person again, or kind of living with the freedom to kind of express yourself and explore the way you want to live, you're not going to have, those things don't happen overnight. It takes time for those effects to emerge. So the fact is, until you try and until you get started, you're not giving those results the chance they need to start to appear in your life. So you need to kind of get the clock going, get the clock started by actually starting the process and trying. Number 3 in my list is that we kind of don't have to wait until something is finished or conditions are perfect before we actually start the process. And trying is what allows us to do that. So, when you're thinking about, moving out of a failing relationship and starting over, you may be worried that you need a certain amount of money behind you, or you need to kind of, get through Christmas for the benefit of the kids, or it'll be a lot easier when the summer comes, or it'll be a lot easier when I've got this promotion at work, or, any number of other kind of conditions that you may want to concoct. But in reality, there's never an ideal time to do anything. I famously, in my family circle, started my family young, and it was a kind of against the wiser judgment of my family at times. And looking back, I can kind of see why, and to some extent. But there's never an ideal time to have kids, as people always say. People may decide they want to save money for years and years, but obviously then correspondingly they're older and they don't necessarily have the energy to have younger kids around them. There's always good and bad signs to doing things either quickly or more in a more slow and considered fashion. The fact is, there's never an ideal time. So, actually getting on and doing something is a good means of just getting going now and trying now, rather than waiting until we think conditions are perfect, or that the product's finished or ready for shipping, or whatever other circumstances may apply given our consideration. The next thing is that trying actually is a good means of allowing ourselves to build up a body of work, or to build up experience. And what I mean by that is that, in business circles, or in kind of the process of projects and things like that, we need to actually go through the process a few times before we learn things and we start to figure out what actually works and what doesn't work. And I think of it as like building up your resume or your CV, depending on what you term it. But, your summary of all the different jobs you've had. You can only build up one of those once you've had a few jobs, once you've done a few things and you've delivered a few projects and you've created a few businesses. You don't have the experience until you have the experience. So starting is actually the means by which we can actually build up those experiences and start to gain that knowledge and that kind of wisdom that allows us to build up that resume and to build up that body of work, if you like, that then equips us for the future. It's the same notion for relationships. If you're one of those people who's perhaps lucky enough to meet and fall in love with your childhood sweetheart and spend the rest of your lives together, then that's probably the only instance in which this doesn't apply. But for most of us, you kind of have to go through the process of having a few failed relationships and kind of kissing a few frogs, if you like, before you actually realise what it is you want in a relationship, and what you bring to a relationship, and what kind of person you want to be with in a relationship. So it's part of the process of building up that knowledge of self and that experience that then enables you to move forwards. And trying is what enables you to do that. The fifth and final one that I wanted to mention is that I think trying actually builds our self-worth and it builds our credibility. Now, if you're constantly one of these people that's just constantly kicking around ideas and daydreaming and saying, I could do this, I could move to Australia, I could emigrate, I could be a rocket scientist, or I could run a business, or I could be a YouTube sensation or whatever, that's fine. But, we all know that people that just talk a good game and don't actually do any of the doing never build up that credibility. And I think that's what trying enables you to do. If you're someone who actually gives things a go and you put the efforts in, and you will undoubtedly stumble and fall at times. There will be times when you're working through something that's really tricky, a divorce, and you kind of say, right, I'm going to hit the gym and I'm going to get killer abs, and I'm going to be the most attractive specimen, and I'm going to come back stronger. It's hard, and there may be times when your motivation falters and you kind of fall off the wagon and you stop going to the gym or whatever else. But the point is, at least you tried. You didn't just talk about it. You didn't just buy a copy of Men's Health and some protein powder and then convince yourself you were going to kind of be the next greatest thing. You actually did something about it. You took some action. And in doing that, you built some credibility for yourself. And I think that's really important. It's really important for building confidence. It's really important for building competence in doing stuff rather than just talking about it. So I think when we try in life, those are the five kind of positives that I've immediately thought of in terms of trying. But what's key for me is that when we actually constrain ourselves to kind of constantly worrying and procrastinating and weighing up all the pros and cons, then chances are we'll never take any action, because there'll always be a good reason for not doing something, for not trying. But if we actually just spend our lives taking the easy option and just picking off the low-hanging fruit that appears in our lives, then chances are we're leaving a whole heap of potential on the table there. If we stay in an unhappy relationship because it's too scary to move out of it, or it's too difficult to contemplate that we could potentially ever be happy after a divorce or after a breakup, then we'll simply never know, If alternatively you're willing to kind of go the extra mile and take the risks and kind of get on the high rung of the ladder and reach for the fruit that isn't hanging quite so low, to actually reach out and stretch yourself and get a bit uncomfortable and to try new things, then that's often when the most amazing rewards can come. And that's often when you get through the most challenging adversities and difficulties that you thought you'd never get through. So I hope that makes sense, and I hope you find it useful, as always. It's kind of a subject I'm really passionate about, action, and not just thinking and not just talking about stuff, but actually taking action. And if you'd like to contact me to suggest further ways in which I can address topics related to that or in any other, then please do leave me a message underneath this. If you could like and share the video, I'd be grateful to you for doing that as well. The video will obviously be on YouTube. The audio from this will be in my next Kintsugi Life podcast episode. And wherever you're listening on those, if you feel happy about leaving a thumbs up or a quick review, then I'd be really grateful for that, and it'll help it reach more people. If you want to just get in touch and let me know what you thought, then please feel to leave a public comment, or my contact details will be beneath the video or underneath the podcast afterwards as well. So either way, I hope to hear from you. I hope you're thriving and not just surviving. And until next time, this is Toby Hazelwood saying goodbye. Goodbye.